with Montgomery County Medical Society. We welcome you here today, and thank you for joining us for our inaugural lunch break. These are 30-minute light bites of education for practice managers, staff, and physicians. And we are looking for topics of interest to you. Our goal, of course, is to provide value to our practices and our practice staff through the physician membership. And so something that we want to do is spend about 15 minutes on a particular topic, about 10 minutes or so on questions related to that topic, or in this case, any IT topic, and then about 5 minutes for wrap up. And that can be questions about other topics, or it can be ideas for future programming. So I wanted to share a few things that are coming up at the Medical Society. We have United Healthcare at the office headquarters on Tuesday, October the 3rd. You can bring in your questions. They request that you not bring in anything that has PHI, but you are able to actually meet with an individual, and we encourage you to make an appointment sometime between 10 a.m. and noon to meet with the United Healthcare staff. We also, for physicians, are having a fall collegiality dinner on October the 4th at Stanford Grill. This is open to all physician members, and it starts at 5:30 with a reception, and 6:30 is dinner. We also have another excellent program coming up at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, October 11th. What we've learned is a lot of the physicians and practice staff don't realize just the breadth of services and resources that are offered by the Montgomery County Health Department. So our goal by having this webinar is to give you an idea of what those resources and services are, how to access them for your patients, and then we're going to follow this program up with monthly articles in our e-news highlighting a particular department or service of the Montgomery County Health Department. So we encourage you to look on our website. You see the address montgomerymedicine.org/upcoming-events/ and you can register for all of these events. So today, it's exciting for me to be able to introduce Chris Knotts, who is the CEO of Peak Technologies. Peak is a strategic partner with Montgomery County Medical Society and also our own IT provider. So Chris's topic today is phishing, how it is to be used in a cyber breach. We've all received these kinds of phishing emails, and sometimes it's hard to know what to do. You know, is it fake? Is it not? Should we open it? Should we not? And so Chris is going to give us some instruction about that. And then, as I said, we're going to open it up for questions after his presentation. So, Chris, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate the support and the collaboration with Peak, and we're going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. And I didn't realize this is the inaugural lunch break, so that much more exciting. Glad to do it. And I think this is a great format to have something short, kind of midday, if you can be here live, maybe get the recording. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. So thank you for the opportunity. And I will share my screen or an app if you enable that. Perfect. I see it. And hopefully you can now see my slide. Got it? Good. Okay, well, Susan said we're going to talk a little bit about phishing, but phishing comes in other flavors than just email. There is SMS-based phishing, which is called smishing. There is phone-based phishing or vishing. That is insidious. We'll talk about that one a little bit more because we're seeing more cases of that. And really what I want to do today is to explain what some of these different types are. Again, the one that we know a lot about, email, but then go into some of the other ones and show you how they present themselves in different ways. And really, at the end of the day, this is about education so that we have knowledge. Knowledge is power. We know what to look for. We know what to be alert for. I know generally in 2023, we're all on high alert. We all, I'm sure, are expecting to get something where somebody's trying to scam us online. But even I can be scammed, and I was, and I'll show you that scenario towards the end of the presentation. I was horrified, but they got me. So, why do they do this? So, why do cyber criminals phish? What are ultimately there's a financial incentive for them, and them is a broad network of organizations, of state actors, of organized crime syndicates throughout the world. It's very complex. It's very organized in many ways. It's very sophisticated. I'm sitting here at Peak's headquarters, where we have a service desk and teams of engineers, and we've got multiple data centers. Okay, well, so do the threat actors. Have all of those things, including in some cases customer service lines with operators standing by to support the ecosystem of cyber threat actors. And there is a marketplace. There are companies that just get your credentials. There are organizations, not companies, there are organizations that just get your credentials. Then there are organizations that get inside of your network or your system or your account. And then they can sell those things to the next organization or set of individuals that actually execute a ransomware attack or something else. So it is financially motivated in most cases. Of course, here in the United States and other countries, there's an intelligence aspect to it too. But it comes in many ways. And some common outcomes, some things that we experience as end users, if there is a phishing experience, is that our email could be taken over by someone else, that then they use your email account really as a broadcast platform to push out many more emails that are phishing attempts. Of course, ransomware is an outcome, where your your data is encrypted, and the request is a payment of some sort to get that back. And then just straight out financial fraud. That is what I experienced, and that's what we're seeing in multiple practices just in the last 6 months, is direct financial fraud. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the phishing section. And then, of course, we will wrap it up and open up for questions here towards the end. So let me just kind of hit the one that we all have heard about, hopefully have never experienced. I would not wish this on anyone. I started Peak about 10 years ago. The number of times that I've actually seen ransomware, I could count on one hand, knock on simulated wood. It's a terrible thing. We've come into practices where this has happened, and now they need help getting out of it. But with ransomware, as you probably know, the files on your network or the files on your server or just even your one computer are encrypted. So software runs that encrypts those files. And then something like this screen is what you see when you log in or you try to get access to your files, which is, hey, we've got you. Here's what you do next. Call this number, click this link, send Bitcoin or some other type of financial transaction, and then we'll give you your files back, or we'll give you the keys to get your files back. It's a bad scene. Usually, if this is the scenario, hopefully you have cyber insurance. Every medical practice should have cyber insurance, and it's just a necessity in today's world, because in many cases, even when professionals are involved, like Peak or other cyber incident specific companies, the answer in many cases is to pay the ransom, and to pay it and negotiate it at some level. And that's either coming out of your pocket as the practice, or through a collaboration with your cyber insurance policy. So get cyber insurance, follow their guidelines. That could be a whole nother lunch break topic on what cyber underwriters are looking for today, for the kind of the baseline for security. But that's, ransomware is one of the ones that we think about. It's what hits the news. There's an active one right now with MGM, even here in DC, where they've had a ransomware attack, and it's affected them for over a week, and some systems are still offline. But let's talk about some less common ones after we hit the email side. This, I just did a quick. I know I see in my inbox, even with spam filter, even with tools as an IT company that we have and that we work with our practices to filter out this stuff, I still get it. They slip through the filters. The threat actors are constantly evolving, and there is no perfect solution out there. We take a layered defense approach, and filtering is one of those layers. And even with that, some comes through. And I remember I'd seen one recently from Lowe's. I'm a Lowe's customer. I go to Lowe's. I don't have a Lowe's card, but I definitely have a Lowe's loyalty account. So it wouldn't be unusual for me to get an email from Lowe's. That's how these things start out. But right away, when I got this email, I see this very long email address, essential.lowes.store.information. It just looks, fishy to me. And you see words that are hyphenated. They're trying to get past your filters. The filters are smart enough to pick up, a single word. Sometimes you'll see the company name slightly misspelled, so that it can try to get past the filters. But in this case, if I were to take this email and click on the start here, something then would begin to happen. And I didn't, so I don't know where this would take me, but possibly it would take me to a screen that looks like maybe a Microsoft login that says, hey, enter your username and password, which just like the Microsoft site, just like the credential, but their purpose is to get my username and password and then try to use it for something else. Or maybe it takes me to a spot where there's a file downloaded in the background through my browser. And if I don't have my browser patched, or I don't have anti-malware software on my computer, that could successfully load on my local system some type of malicious software that could be used to do something later. So we know about these. I think we're tuned as sophisticated users in the medical space to look for these unusual emails and not click them. Don't click, ideally, messages on links inside of messages unless you know exactly who it's from and what it's from. And in some cases, you could get a message from somebody that or even somebody within your organization, because email addresses are easy to spoof. Information about who works where is easy to find on sites like LinkedIn, or even your practice or your healthcare organization's website. So we could go deeper into phishing and some phishing training. Hopefully in your organization, you're getting some cyber training. And in most organizations now, especially if you have cyber insurance, annual cyber awareness training is a requirement. And usually active phishing testing is a requirement. So in that scenario, your IT provider or your IT team is trying to trip you up. They're going to send out email messages that look like phishing attempts. And when you click on them, you'll get redirected to hey, you shouldn't have done this. Let's talk about training. Let's talk about what you should look at in the future. So many organizations that we work with, probably about the 90 practices that we support, 70 or so are doing phishing training on a regular basis with tools that we provide. So I want to hit some other ones that I know you've seen as well, and hopefully you're also tuned to these. I'm sure you are. This one, just the wording, hello, mate. I wouldn't, usually you wouldn't expect to see that from an official message from FedEx. They're trying to get you, the threat actor is trying to get you to click on this link. Again, On the other end of that link could be anything like we just described for email. They're trying to get your credentials, or they're trying to get you to download software. Those are usually the things that are at the other end of these links. Very common. The cellular carriers have their own filtering in place, but just like in the email world, they can't catch them all. I got one the other day that was from Secu, State Employees Credit Union, Secu. It's not one of the big banks. It's not Chase. That's not Wells Fargo. You probably have gotten those before. I am a Chase customer. I'm not a Wells Fargo, but I am a Secu customer. I've got a couple of savings accounts for my kids at Secu, and that bank is small enough that you wouldn't expect them. But that's exactly what it was. It was if the threat actor throws out 1 million text messages and they get 0.5% of the people say, hey, I'm a Secu customer, this must be real, then they have some success. So even with smaller banks, smaller financial institutions, they are also used in these types of attacks. So be on the alert, watch your text inbox for things like this. And just like with email, if you don't know exactly where it's coming from, don't click on it. Phishing is one that requires a little bit of explanation, but maybe you've experienced this too. And in fact, we just had one today, and about 2 weeks ago, we had another one in a practice. And the way it goes down is usually like this. Someone at the practice gets a phone call, and the person on the other end identifies them as part of your IT department or your IT team. If they're our client, they would hopefully not know enough about the scenario to say, hey, I'm so-and-so from Peak. But typically, a user they're not expecting it, they have their defenses down, they get a direct call, oh, this is somebody from my IT department. Maybe they have an open case where they're working on something. Well, in the case 2 weeks ago, a provider spent an hour and a half on the phone with this fake technician from a call center that existed somewhere, but it wasn't our team. And as we were seeing alerts of things that were happening on the back end, we got an awareness, contacted the practice administrator. The provider was still on the phone with the technician, and we were able to end that call, disconnect the computer from the network. We had a technician there within an hour to pick up that computer, bring it back here to get it cleaned. Because what that technician was doing, what the fake technician was doing in this phishing call, was installing software that was going to be used for a broader ransomware attack. If they can get into one system and the network is not always configured to protect from once somebody's inside, then they can move to other systems and possibly create a ransomware event across the board. So if you, and it usually comes from, this is your IT team, or maybe this is your bank representative, be suspicious of phone calls you receive from organizations that you don't recognize, or even if you do recognize the organization, push for some other type of verification or validation. I got a call recently from a partner in the cyber defense space, and before he wanted information, I wanted information from him. We didn't know each other. Before we even shared anything, I said, let's exchange emails to see that we're both who we say we are. And there are things that you can do like that to protect yourself. But this is on the rise. And we had another one today where they identified themselves as the IT department. So let's kind of move on and talk about the social media scenario. Again, I'm tuned into these things. I'm looking for them. But I was on YouTube. Yeah, I don't usually turn on the TV and kind of look through something on the guide. If I'm watching content, it's on YouTube, and I follow things like Tesla and IT, and I fly. So I've got pilot stuff. And I went on to YouTube this one evening, and right up in my recommended videos was a live broadcast of Elon Musk and some other people talking about talking about Bitcoin. Well, that's interesting to me. I'm going to see what does Elon Musk have to say about it. It was fake, but the algorithms within YouTube had not yet caught it to take it down because it just happens so often and automatically that their systems are not sophisticated enough to pick it up all the time. And what the attackers did was they took a real webinar, a real webcast that Elon Musk and some other experts had done on Bitcoin, and they embedded that into their video. And in their video was a URL. Go to this TeslaUSD.net. And I think there's another one that I saw that had a QR code. And all of these were trying to ultimately get your Bitcoin credentials. And it looked legitimate to me. It was in a real Tesla channel and with real video of trusted faces. So this is another area where we need to be vigilant. These can come through any social media channel. So Twitter, Instagram, in this case, it was YouTube. So another area where you wouldn't expect to see phishing, but that's what this is. They're trying to get something from you, your credentials. So how did they get me? I use PayPal sporadically. I have a couple of vendors that these are actually screenshots from my phone and my email account. I'm just bearing my soul. So it was a busy day. I think we were getting ready to travel. I got this notice that there was a failed PayPal transaction. And when I went into my PayPal app, so the leftmost screen is right out of PayPal. And I see things that I recognize, a couple of things that I bought. And then this Rita Smith canceled payment for $1,500. Well, immediately I see that doesn't look right. That's got to be fraud. I don't know Rita Smith, and I'm not planning to send or receive $1,500 from anybody. So I click on it and get the next screen here in the middle. And the first thing I see is this message. Don't recognize this transaction? Contact PayPal. So what I picked up my phone. I'm like, we're dealing with this. I call that, don't call that number on the screen, by the way. I call that 855 number, which has nothing to do with PayPal. The threat actor in this case put a memo line in the message that said that right there. Don't recognize this transaction? Contact PayPal. That's not PayPal's phone number. That's a fake call center. So when I called that number, I got a real person that said, thank you for calling PayPal support. How can I help you? I explained the scenario. I said, okay, we're sending you an authorization code. What they were doing, I had two-factor authentication set up on my PayPal account. So when I log in, I get a code to my phone, and then I plug that code in. So they then made a login attempt on my account, which automatically pushed a text to my phone. I opened the text. It's from PayPal because it's the PayPal system. I gave the person the text code, which we all know in our real world when we have our wits about us, we never, if you don't know this, you know it now. You should never give anybody one of those authorization codes that comes through text. It happens so fast. The moment I gave the person the code, I realized I had just done something wrong. And so I jump over into my email and I see within seconds, two-factor authentication has been removed. They were attempting to do transactions. So I was still in my account. I deleted all of my bank accounts connect. So I was able to stop it, but it was right there. They got me, but it looked and felt so real. And it was mixed with real, this is PayPal website, and fake call center, real text message. And in my scenario, I didn't lose any money, but it just goes to show you they're sophisticated, creative, and they use these tools to fake us out. So I went to kind of end there. I know we're already over some of the time. We started a little bit late, but open it up if there are any questions to answer those the best I can about phishing, smishing, or other IT topics. As we kind of end, I'll say a couple of quick things about Peak. Maybe I'll do that now. We provide technology solutions and support services to medical practices in the National Capital Region. We're based in Bowie, Maryland. We support clients in Virginia, DC, Pennsylvania, also through the Carolinas. We have another office in Raleigh, North Carolina. Really, it's IT support, telephony services. We have a voice over IP platform specifically designed for medical practices. It's HIPAA compliant. It's all managed in-house from the same team that provides the IT support services. We have 2 data centers where we're hosting EMR and other applications. And we have a strong focus on cybersecurity services. So if there are any topics or questions you have about IT in general, my contact information will be provided. All we do is work with healthcare or healthcare related organizations, and we're here to support you. Because we're just doing healthcare, we know many of the electronic medical record systems already, which is a huge benefit when you're working with an IT team. And if you made it to the end today, we're going to send you a really nice Tervis insulated cup as a thank you for hanging out with us. And then with that, I'll open it up for questions. Or Susan, if you have anything else.
Yes, thanks so much. Well, I knew there were all kinds of ishing, but I didn't know that there was smishing and vishing. And so I didn't know they had other labels. So I certainly learned a lot. I appreciate that. Dr. Edipuli, do you have any questions for our speaker? Or anyone else? And so one of the things we're going to do is make sure that we link to this presentation in our e-news on Sunday, and that we also send it out to anyone who couldn't join us today. That's really interesting information. And I think, that sort of training that you were talking about, is that something that practices could access from you or another vendor, even if they don't have that company's IT support? Is that available?
Yeah, it is available from other vendors. When Peak is providing it, we're doing it for the customers that we support.
Right.
But there are commercial companies that just do cyber awareness and phishing training. I'm trying to think of one of the popular ones now. One of them is called Bullfish. So you can just pay per month per user, and they do the kind of the fake phishing emails to see if people within your organization bite, and then if they do, then they get pushed cyber security awareness training. So with Peak, it's just for clients that we support, but there are vendors just that only do the phishing training part.
So I have a question. More regularly, I'm getting notices in my email that I have missed a call. And it's a voicemail. It says it's a voicemail, but it doesn't look like it. And I have clicked on one before and it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
So I'm curious whether or not that's in the category, and that if it did work well, because at present, we don't have that capability. I am glad to say that we are transitioning to Peak's telephone system and already have meetings set up about that. So soon we'll know, and you're going to help us manage our back-end phone system and voicemail. But is that also, you would think that that's one of those that we should be leery of?
It is. Yeah, they come through email. I get them too. And they're usually convincing because the algorithm knows your name because they have your email address, and they can embed your name in that message just enough that this looks legitimate. Well, it's just the code that they've written that makes it look like it's addressed specifically to you. Usually on the other side of those links that you click is a pop-up that's asking for your Microsoft credentials. That's most of us now have Microsoft accounts somewhere in our life. We have an email and a password that we're using either for Office 365 email or SharePoint or even our Microsoft domain at our office. So most people have a Microsoft account, probably 90% of IT users do. It's a very popular one. And it's the one that then if cyber criminals can get those credentials, they can try to use them to get into your network. So yes, they look like just push this button to play the message. And that typical user experience is then you need to give us your credentials first, and then you can listen to the message. Yeah, very convincing because they're made to look personalized to you. But if you don't, you will have that capability with the Peak Voice solution. You'll know what that looks like. And if it ever doesn't look like the Peak Voice email that says, here's your message, then you want to avoid it. You want to think of it just like, any other phishing email.
All right. So, Dr. Edipuli, anybody have any questions today? Questions about IT or even anything going on in the medical association? All right, well, we want to thank you, Chris, for joining us today for our inaugural lunch break. We are going to be doing these on a monthly basis, usually on the third Tuesday of the month from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Around the holidays in November and December, we may change those dates up a little bit to try to accommodate as many people as we possibly can. But we thank you for joining us. And as I said, we will link this presentation in our e-news and encourage people to contact Peak if you have IT needs. We've been very satisfied with this relationship, and we're glad to promote Peak to our medical practices. So we thank you very much for joining us, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. Bye.